Identifying a sequence of transformations. In this first question, you're asked to determine a series of transformations that would map blue figure U onto green figure V. A series or sequence means multiple moves, and the best way to determine a sequence is to choose one point on the starting figure and to choose its corresponding part on the ending figure. So I know I'll call this point A. I know that point A is located at 9, -1. And I know that after a series of transformations, and for this question, it will be 2 moves. After 2 transformations, I will end up at this new location. And the coordinates of that new location are -1, 9. So the first thing I notice is that my numbers are very similar, but they are not in the same position. So they have what we call swapped places. And most of us know that a swap occurs when you have a 90-degree rotation. So if I were to rotate this 90 degrees, I definitely am going to swap the points, and then one of them is going to change signs. Well, I already have a +9, so what if I rotated it counterclockwise? That means that this coordinate, -1, will change to a +1. After a 90 degrees counterclockwise rotation about the origin, I now need to get to this new location. And my points are almost perfect, except I need to change the sign of this x-coordinate. And in order to change the sign of an x-coordinate, you need to reflect over the y-axis. And when I do, that +1 will become this -1 that I need. So those are my 2 transformations, 90 degrees counterclockwise rotation and a reflection over the y-axis. There are other series of transformations that could also take you from figure U to figure V. Let's take a look at a different sequence. In this animation, you'll notice they reflected over the x-axis, and then they rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise. Reflection over the x-axis, 90-degree rotation counterclockwise. Let's take a look at how those points would appear. The original point A, which was at 9, -1, would first be reflected over the x-axis, and that created this coordinate. Then they rotated it 90 degrees, so that's a swapping of the points, counterclockwise. And they get the same ending point as us. In this question, they ask you to determine a series of transformations that would map figure M onto figure N. So let's pick one point and its corresponding point. So I'll call this point A, and its coordinates are 1, 9. And after 2 moves, the coordinate will become 9, -5. So I know definitely a translation occurred because I don't have the same digits. But I also noticed that the 9 is in a swapped position. So why don't we first start off with a 90-degree rotation. A 90-degree rotation is going to swap these coordinates, and I still want the 9 to be positive, so that means I'd have to go with a sign change with the 1. So that's going to be clockwise. And then it will become a -1. And then how does -1 become a -5? Well, I need to subtract 4. So that means I would need to translate 4 units down. Let's take a look at another way that you could transform these 2 figures. You could also translate 4 to the right and then rotate 90 degrees. Let's see how that would change the coordinates. If our initial coordinate was 1, 9, and we translate four units to the right, then we would be adding 4 here. And then, if we rotate 90 degrees, we would swap the coordinates, and if we rotate 90 degrees clockwise, we would negate the second value, and we would wind up at the correct point. That's how you determine a sequence of transformations.